Our brainwave state directly affects the level of consciousness that we can tap into. The brain is many things, but what I like to represent the brain as most often is as a quantum antenna, capable of receiving and transmitting frequencies of thought, which are waveforms of pure potentiality. The brain is not a generator of consciousness. It's the instrument through which consciousness experiences reality, like a radio tuning into a field that already exists. I first learned about the fact that the brain doesn't create anything, but rather receives and transmits information through a book called The White Book by Ramtha. Since then, I have been obsessed about learning more about this, which has led me to learn from other people that have talked about this phenomenon. And people like Rupert Sheldrake, Bernardo Kastrup, Federico Fagin. There are some, great quantum theories that also explain this. And also the Institute of Noetic Sciences explains this model clearly. Our brain is structurally designed to modulate different brainwave levels. And by doing so, it is able to interact with the unifying field of consciousness at different levels of awareness or consciousness. We are multiphasic beings, or in other words, multidimensional beings, able to access the different dimensions of consciousness at different frequencies through our different brainwave states. We can modulate four main different brainwave states or consciousness states, each with its own purpose, frequency, and access point into multidimensional awareness. These are the beta, alpha, theta, and delta brainwaves in sequential order of frequency. There is another brainwave state called the superconscious state, the gamma brainwaves, which I will not cover here. First, the beta brainwave state, the outer focused mind. This is the dominant brainwave of daily life, tied to logic, decision making, and engagement with our primary five senses: touching, hearing, seeing, smelling, and tasting. This is how we navigate our external reality. This is how we collect data from our external environment. This is our wakefulness, alertness, and external focus state. Beta can be experienced in layers as low-level beta, mid-level beta, or high-level beta. Higher level beta often correlates with stress or overstimulation, which is really energy fragmentation, because overstimulation of the brain actually creates global brain incoherence in the brain. This is when different parts of the brain are firing simultaneously over a long period of time. And sustaining this over a long period of time can overexpend the resources of the brain. In beta brainwaves, we are fully plugged into our external reality, and our intention influences reality only at limited distances. This is because we're local in space-time, and we're functioning by Newtonian physics in the physical reality. To shift from the beta brainwave state to the next brainwave state, which is alpha, one has to move beyond the analytical mind. The alpha brainwave state, this is the gateway brainwave state. The alpha brainwave grants us direct access to the quantum field, allowing for shifting of beliefs, influencing matter non-locally, and accessing other dimensions of consciousness. This is the state of calm focus, inward awareness, or as it can be commonly called as relaxed yet aware state. Alpha is the bridge between the conscious and the subconscious or unconscious mind. In this state, the inner world becomes more real than the outer world. At this level of mind, thought is experienced largely through imagery rather than analytical thinking. The alpha brainwave can occur in moments before sleep and right after waking, during creative activities, and most coherently through meditation. It's also the default state when our mind is idle, or, like I said, when we're in creative mode. And we have to move past the analytical mind to get to an alpha brainwave state. The alpha brainwave state is a superpower frequency. It's the place where the brain coherence, inner clarity, and quantum access converge. Kids at the ages of 7 to 12 spend the majority of their life in the alpha brainwave state, the imagery realm, flourishing. Neurogenesis in the brain is going on and learning an enormous amount of new information. Here is a quick summary of why the alpha brainwave state is so powerful. You move beyond the analytical mind. You experience imagery-based consciousness. You influence the quantum field directly. You gain access to the subconscious programming. You begin to synchronize both hemispheres of the brain, which creates global coherence in the brain. And that's when you enter the optimal state for creation. So you are physically relaxed, mentally aware, and spiritually connected. That is the alpha consciousness state. The theta brainwave state. This is the hypnotic trance state. At the theta brainwave state is where internal programming becomes super, super flexible. It's used in hypnosis, in deep meditations to shift core beliefs, and in other really interesting types of modalities for therapy and treatment of trauma, such, for example, EMDR treatment. It is the brainwave state with high suggestibility. It is also the level of consciousness where creativity, insight, and problem solving are enhanced. This is the intuitive, dreamy, subconscious zone. This brainwave state can be spotted as half awake and half asleep in a state of deep relaxation. In the theta brainwave state, the veil between the subjective and the objective world thins. Very young kids between ages 2 and 6 live in the theta brainwave state. Most of their experience is in that brainwave state. This is the suggestible and hypnotic state in which the analytical mind is not yet developed, and children are very receptive to information. They accept and believe without analytical thinking. This programming of early development years, ages 2 to 6, can be so impactful for the rest of the adult life because most of the time, parents and children aren't aware this is happening on a deeper level. And this is the stage of ages 2 to 6 where most of the programming that the kids absorb occur in this time frame because kids exist most of their life in this age range in the theta brainwave state. The delta brainwave state is the deep healing regenerative state. The delta brainwave state is responsible for healing and cellular restoration during deep sleep or unconscious awareness. When accessed consciously, however, without falling asleep, Delta opens the door to profound healing, stillness, and even quantum resets, among other multidimensional possibilities, one of which is lucid dreaming. Newborns, ages 0 to 2 years old, spend their living time in delta brainwave states. Babies exist between worlds, asleep with their eyes open. This is really profound and may shift the way you view a newborn next time. So, as you can see, brain modulation is absolutely intrinsic in the way that we're functioning as spiritual beings, multidimensional beings, multiphasic beings here in this human experience. And it's incredibly important to our health and our well-being and to the reality that we experience and the way that we live on a day-to-day basis. The reason I know about these different types of brainwave states is because when I was training in my meditation practice, I needed to learn about this. I needed to learn how to go from the beta brainwave state to the alpha and even lower to theta. And so that's really what's happening when you're training in a deeper meditative practice. You're learning how to change your brain waves. And practicing switching between different types of brainwave states makes us more capable of regulating our internal world with more intention and coherence, and not just experiencing our reality through the external beta brainwave state, but rather through the other brainwave states which we are intrinsically designed to access. Also, I just want to finish with one more thing that I think is important to state here, that scientists who have studied brainwave activity found that the longer one watches television, the more likely the brain will slip into the alpha level, a slow, steady brainwave pattern in which the mind is its in most receive mode. It is the non-cognitive mode. Information can be placed into the mind directly without the viewer participation or analytical thinking, aka censorship of that information.